And as we return, we look at ratifying trade agreements. The Southern and Eastern Africa Trade Information and Negotiations Institute, STARTIMES, has expressed fear and concern over trade treaties such as COMESA, Africa Free Continental Trade Area, in which Uganda is partly linking them to far-reaching implications. Now, the institute finally resolved to petition the leader of opposition and have the matter before Parliament for ratification.
Uganda is party to a couple of trade agreements such as COMESA, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the Energy Charter Treaty, and locally participation in the East African Community, among others. All these are meant to promote national investment. However, according to STARTIMES, they have far-reaching implications owing to the fact that they aren't well scrutinized and such all need to be declared for Ugandans to understand.
No need. And what we are saying, even if we leave out the articles, problematic articles, for us we think this is an issue of sovereignty. We have moved a little bit from the Shaka Zulus who used to put their mark without knowing how to read an agreement. We can be able to read an agreement. And our worry really is that we haven't had anything from our government, from the East African community, from the Ministry of Trade, nothing. But the EU is saying, you join. And what we are saying, it would be really, really unfortunate for us to join. In any case, this agreement is for the East African community. Other countries like DRC never negotiated this agreement at all. South Sudan didn't. So for all these treaties, and these are just two treaties, we are just giving you an example. There are other bilateral investment treaties, which we even don't know where they are, who signed them, but they are
The Energy Charter Treaty is among a string of treaty entries government has signed. To the Institute, this is a very problematic as it prohibits the country from addressing climate change issues. Explainer as to why developed countries are pulling out.
A number of the investments which are already in place have to be protected for a longer time, for almost 20 years. So a number of developed countries are pulling out of this treaty. But what's interesting, African countries are entering the treaty, including Uganda. Uganda, we submitted a letter of intention to join, and we are aware that recently the Deputy Speaker participated in one of the activities at the Energy Charter Treaty Secretariat. And that's why we are raising the issue of the process. You know, how should we be entering into treaties and how should we be committing, because that's a commitment, committing the country.
On the other hand, the leader of opposition has informed the team from STARTIMES that often they have requested government to present the treaties involved in, but to no avail, though promising that the matter will be raised before the House tomorrow.
Plays into a matter that was on the floor of Parliament last week. You recollect that a member demanded that the government lays on the floor of Parliament all treaties, all agreements that have been, entered into between the government and the government of Uganda and any other international agencies. Strangely, the minister purported to lay a document that never had any detail, and indeed, the same document was not uploaded on our platforms. I had already informed my minister to demand on Tuesday, tomorrow, that those documents be uploaded. Now, STARTIMES comes with a red flag, and the red flag really further informs the danger in which we are walking as a nation, namely, that the possibility of so many undertakings, informal protocols and agreements that are being made on our behalf that are going to affect generations, and somehow we don't seem to care.
Mpuga says the country needs to know why the developed countries are pulling out of the energy treaty, and yet African countries, including Uganda, are getting attached to a time of anticipation to fast oil.
it is very possible and feasible for African leaders to be compromised. And they sign with full knowledge that they are signing off something bad, but somehow some of our leaders have been molded that way. And I want to thank you, Siatini, for raising the red flag on these issues, and especially how they relate to our environment and the trade environment, the climate and then the trade environment. I agree with you that the emerging oil and gas sector is presenting to us so many challenges, some seen, others unseen. We warned through the signing of the PSAs that are also secretive in nature, that a lot could go on without the knowledge of the population, and before you know it, you have another Ogoni in Uganda.
Amid this demand for declaration of respective treaties, there are key underlying factors to the cause informed by participatory advantage and essence to domestic growth and investment. Samlanifa, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, away from that, we now talk investment gaps. As despite government intervention to influence the private sector growth through development finance institutions such as the UDC and UDB, initiatives have been undermined by contract delays. And according to what is coming in from here, there is also high cost of corruption in the country. In Wakiso, home to Entebbe Free Zone, enterprise proprietors decided to petition the Justice Ministry over the impending crisis in spite of efforts to push for a suitable business climate. Pedison Mumbere reports.
Government has maintained efforts for national development through avenues such as recapitalization of Uganda Development Bank and UDC in the current fiscal year. This is meant to extend financial interventions within the private sector, aligning sector priorities such as agriculture, agro-industry and manufacturing, which constitutes about 75% of UDB's portfolio. In Wakiso district, local investment proprietors informed that despite efforts to improve the business climate, high taxes, extortion and corruption have affected progress, recalling the Justice Ministry for intervention.
We have hosted this forum for Wakiso. All that we have talked about will be compiled into a report, and we shall take the report to the local government of Wakiso and also to the central government. We have had an opportunity to listen to the real investors. They are complaining about excessive taxation from URA and also from the local government. They are talking about extortion. They are talking about corruption in the local government and also at the central government. They are talking about bad infrastructure.
Projects under UDB primed to support private sector growth in this financial year still fall within key priority sectors. Samuel Edem, the credit director, confirms that the bank's financing interventions are mainly in primary agriculture, agro-processing and manufacturing, which account for about 80% of its investment portfolio, despite other interventions in areas such as tourism, ICT, infrastructure and human capital development.
And all these few skills that help entities transform, we also help them in the formalization process, because without formalizing, they will not be able to access credit within the financial ecosystem. So UDB's intervention comes in to start them off on that journey, to start them off with small facilities that they can manage, well structured, addressing concerns around the lack of or limited amounts of security through solutions in asset finance, sort of contract financing and such that can unlock, individuals' capacity to access facilities, to provide services, goods, and therefore participate in the formalized financial system.
According to National Planning Authority, over 50% of Uganda's entrepreneurship is classified as necessity-driven rather than opportunity-driven, implying that many startups are driven by instincts for survival other than opportunity. Amidst the high cost of corruption across administration and other areas, the Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister, Norbert Mao, responds that those implicated should instead be ousted from service.
So, my recommendation is that government officials who frustrate investors should be dismissed. If it is the stamp which makes you have a big head, if it is the desk which gives you a big head, if having the authority to sign documents which gives you a big head, nobody is impossible to replace in the world. Once that signal goes out, there will be less corruption.
Interventions by development finance institutions have focused on support for investment even in the least appealing areas, attracting job creation, high productivity, tax-based growth and foreign exchange receipts. With 10 trillion shillings lost annually due to corruption, as per the Inspectorate of Government, impact on investment and enterprise growth remains certain and need for redress ultimately important. Pedson Mombere, Naomi Mtumba, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
And now we talk about streamlining the transport sector. As following government's decision to evict markets and parks encroaching on road reserves and the right of way, operators in areas such as Chireka, Busega and Kalere have openly questioned the development. As efforts to streamline public transport and safety take center stage, questions have been extended in search for a resettlement action plan. This and more with Naomi Mutumba.
In a bid to address the rising number of accidents caused by roadside markets, Ugandan government has taken a decisive step by ordering the eviction of market vendors and transport operations in the areas of Chireka, Busega, Kalere, Chaliwajal and Lukaya. The directive, which comes into effect immediately, aims to improve road safety and reduce traffic congestion in these locations.
UNRA is directed to immediately remove the roadside markets and taxi parks that have encroached onto the roads and road reserves. For example, when you go to Busega, will you even pass? When you go to Lukaya, Kareilwe, Kamocha, all those areas, you go to Kireka, Chalwajala, you see all those areas. There is a main road, but there is a market inside the main road. Which kind of country are we living in?
Despite recent efforts by government to address market issues and streamline the Market Act, there are significant gaps that still exist in the implementation and effectiveness of these measures. Government decision has generated mixed reactions from vendors, transport operators and residents who rely on these markets for their livelihoods.
We welcome government's decision for us to be allocated, but the only problem we have is the new market was not built so well. We cannot refuse leaving this place, but the mode of construction was inappropriate. There would be departments, but as we speak, it's all put together. We don't reject government's decision, but where they prepared us for in this new market, it's a small place that cannot accommodate us. We want the speaker to first come and get to know the number of traders operating on the streets. She will know that the space is not enough.
One of the primary objectives of the Market Act 2023 is to establish a clear regulatory framework for market operations across the country. It provides guidelines and procedures for obtaining licenses, ensuring that marketplaces adhere to specified standards of hygiene, safety and quality. This will contribute to the overall improvement of market infrastructure and the well-being of vendors and consumers. Naomi Mtumba, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now lastly, we talk global shipping as the Uganda Freight Forwarders Association and the private sector have divulged into challenges facing the shipping sector in the wake of persistent supply chain setbacks influenced by the Russia-Ukraine war. Although resolutions are expected in this year's convention bringing together Africa and the Middle East, hurdles such as artificial intelligence, adherence to the ESC protocol, standard harmonization and mindset change are among a stretch of concerns for global supply chain diversification. Rona Nahabwe reports.
International trade experienced a significant decline in 2020, although rebounded strongly in 2021. Surpassing pre-pandemic levels, post-pandemic distress and persistent supply chain bottlenecks, for example in the Russia-Ukraine standoff, have offered more ground to address this. A high-level meeting between Africa and the Middle East is, however, expected to offer resolution to the crisis, as the Private Sector Forwarders Association area on expressed concern over bottlenecks while giving insight into the freight and forwarding sector.
Whether it's agriculture, mining, or manufacturing. Without logistics, the cost goes up. Without logistics, we become inefficient as an economy. Therefore, this is a critical theme. It is a critical meeting, whether you're a player directly or a supplier, such as insurance, financial service providers, others directly involved, like the shipping lines, transporters, importers, exporters, manufacturers. Everybody needs logistics in their supply chains.
Growth of the freight and forwarding industry hasn't come on a silver platter, with hurdles spanning from years back to the HIV/AIDS epidemic in the 70s, the recent impact of COVID-19, the Russia and Ukraine conflict, and the natural disasters. Currently, the industry is also grappling with the disruptive influence of artificial intelligence, which poses a threat to job opportunities.
Can I show you one of the things that really affected our industry regionally was HIV/AIDS. Most of the drivers that were there in the 70s and 80s, they are all gone because of AIDS and because of their habits. Imagine a man has to travel all the way from Mombasa to Bujumbura, and he has to stop in Naruwerere, stop in Riantonde, stop. So wherever they were stopping, they wanted to socialize. I mean, it's a very hard work driving that truck at that speed. And they talk about 2,000 plus kilometers. So they got engaged in this, and definitely HIV claimed what it did. And then, of course, came the COVID. Automating everything at the port. So you can imagine the crane that is supposed to pick the containers from the ship is automated. They have set up the system. There is no human being. It picks a container, puts it on a truck. A truck has no driver. And they go and stack all that containers in a port, which normally has 2,000-3,000 people working. Now you have no human being there. There is one facility by the Amazon in Singapore. It is the size of 49 football pitches. But in that facility, there isn't a single human being. What do? You call them and you make an order. I want 5 kilos of sugar, 10 kilos of potatoes, blah, blah. And within 5 hours, that consignment, whatever you have ordered, that order will be at your place where you have ordered it from. And there is no human being involved. Where are we going? Trucks are delivering cargo from the west coast of America to the east coast without a driver and a turnboy. A truck is
Amidst the competitive landscape of the Africa Continental Free Trade Zone area, concerns arise regarding inadequate infrastructure, non-compliance with the EAC Custom Union protocols, and the absence of harmonized standards. To ensure sustainable supply chain, stakeholders advocate for a self-regulation bill to expedite the progress in the region.
Right now we are talking about continental free trade, but we have to be positive and see what to do. But right now, I think it's coming too fast before we address the issues that, like you are asking, like the infrastructure. We really wish to trade, and the tradable goods are there and they are ready. But when you think of how they will get to a sweet potato from here to even Durban, by the time it gets there, will it be affordable? That's because of the infrastructure.
Nice. I think that's what even Mr. Kaleba was saying. We are East African community mostly in words, but when it will come to practice, we remain different. And that's why Even in Kenya, our milk goes, today it is accepted, our maize is accepted, then tomorrow they say it has aflatoxins. How do we ensure that, we can control that? The only way to do it would be to have unified standards and maybe a coordination body of the standards bodies. And I'm told it is being done, but I think the solution is fast-tracking that process. So that when you are exporting to Kenya or Sudan or wherever, you know the agency that has cleared you is recognized the other side, and you want to be your cargo.
There, we are told each truck has to pay $100 to enter, and that is for a year, but $70 every entry. 2 days after we had left and we had thought we had signed all the documents necessary. So we called the minister, he said, I don't know about it. He said, let me find out from Foreign Affairs. He called Foreign Affairs. They didn't know about it. They called Trade. They didn't know about it. And eventually they found that was actually the Department of Traffic in the police force that had come up with that. So they come up with a decision that is affecting another country. They are members now of the East African community. The rules and regulations that govern the community don't allow that. It has to go through the bilateral.
The Regional Association of Middle East and Africa represents a network of more than 1,000 freight forwarders across 30 countries in the region. Additionally, FIATA, the international body consisting of 4,000 freight forwarders in 150 countries, plays a crucial role in promoting the interests and facilitating the global movement of goods. Amidst the Russia-Ukraine war, container shipment costs witnessed a significant increase ranging from $9,000 to $12,000 US. Runana Habwe, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
And as we are coming to the end of Business Today, let's have a recap of our top stories.
In Business Today, Trade Committee cross-examines UNBS over
All right. And from the entire newsroom, editorial and production here at Plot 42 Nile Avenue, I'm Jerome Paul Sonka, Winbreeze and Akauti for sign language interpretation. I wish you all the best for the evening, a blessed night, and till tomorrow.